G'day, Ancient Heart here. So, have you been in a relationship with somebody with borderline personality? Are you dating somebody with borderline personality? Are you trying to love somebody with borderline personality? Or maybe you've been in a relationship for quite a while now. In significant other relationships, some people think that the person with BPD really loves them. Many people think that this person in your life that you're in a relationship with or were in a relationship with BPD really loves you. Well, I've talked about this in a lot of videos on this channel and will continue to, because guess what? Especially untreated, and even after some treatment, it depends, but not all people with BPD are the same. But untreated people with BPD absolutely do not know how to love in any healthy, congruent, consistent, situationally appropriate adult manner. So this idea that it's inevitable that a person with BPD will split and devalue you, yes, in relationships, it rather is. Not always, but a high percentage of the time. But is it because they finally feel your love? Oh, and that's what sends them into a split, a devaluation split, and they got to get gone because they can't take in the love? Not really, because they don't feel the love in the first place. So people with BPD are and untreated often and or with some treatment, but they're all different, okay? But people with BPD, or a majority or a lot of people with BPD out there, when the splitting happens because they can't manage anything to do with paradox or understanding your feelings at the same time they have feelings, usually a lot of feelings that are often overwhelming them, anxiety upon getting closer to you in a relationship, and then needing to distance, and then feeling like you abandoned them, asking you to do everything for them a certain way. Here's the thing. You think they love you. They don't know how to love in any healthy, adult, consistent, congruent way, as I just said. What does that really mean? Well, people with BPD, especially untreated, but it takes significant treatment, whatever that means, I don't know anymore, before things can change for them, and to what degree, and everybody's an individual with BPD. But what it means is that they don't, it's like you love them, it's like you're too nice to them. It's like they confuse love with need. Because one thing people with BPD are likely aware of, but not always consciously aware of this 100%, is how much they need. Because they hurt so much, right? And they do. And so they confuse what they need and how they are seeking identity through you, which is they're not doing that knowingly or on purpose. They confuse that love with need. So they need. And they think somehow there's love in that for you. There isn't any. Not healthy, not consistent. And of course, there's some variation on that, but I'm talking about the majority of people with BPD, and especially untreated. So this idea that they split you to devalue and or ghost you, or when they have to have the relationship end, all relationships that people start with, most people with BPD, are going to be on a trajectory to rupture from the very beginning. That's something people can't know going into these relationships, right? So, but it's not that they get to this point of feeling your love and then they have to evacuate because they don't take it in. They don't know how to give it. And like I've said, it's the object of the relating. But the other point too is this idea that it's inevitable, and people don't know this going into these relationships, right? That if you get into a relationship with somebody with BPD, now, significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the case, it's very true that the relationship is destined to rupture. So I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but there are people with BPD that have like had certain amounts of treatment, maybe made a few changes or a lot of changes in different ways. There are people out there like that with BPD, and they still have BPD, but they can do some things better in relating. Many can't, but some can. So I'm not going to say 100% of the time because of that. And the fact that we're talking here, I'm talking here, because we're always, people are watching the videos, clients I'm working with, and what I'm talking about here, we're talking about this high percentage of people with BPD, many not treated, maybe some somewhat treated, that when you get in the relationship with them, it is destined to rupture because of the repetition compulsions and because of the adverse childhood response that BPD is and what happened to them relationally in their young lives and going forward. So it becomes, for people with BPD who might try really hard, confuse need and want, and confuse need with love, need and want with love. They want love, they need love, they want validation, but they don't seem to be able to give much back. And again, certain percentage, some people can give some things back, but you won't get to mutuality and reciprocity. And you won't get any closure through all the different episodes, trigger dysregulated emotion, etc. And when the relationship ruptures, however that happens, whether they ghost you or leave or you leave, there's no closure to be had. So this is difficult for people. So, but don't misunderstand that they actually love you and that it's your love they're just becoming aware of your love when they do that final split to devaluation and the relationship ruptures one way or another. Because no, if you think that way and if that's what you believe, A, it's not accurate information, and B, it's going to increase your feelings of guilt, right? Guilt that isn't healthy guilt that isn't yours. You're going to think, wow, if I did this or that better, if only I didn't do this, then it would have worked out. And that's not the case at all, because there's nothing you can do in the end to help them. And especially when they don't want treatment, they don't want help. Many think it's everybody else's fault still, right? And so there's nothing more that you could do or could have done. And then there's that slippery slope issue of, are you no contact or are you what I'm going to now call half contact? So many people are half contact. Whether they're just reading text messages and not responding to an ex, or whether they are doing the reverse Hoover, the reverse stealth Hoover of watching somebody's social media, what they're posting. Some people can get into people's accounts because if they don't change their passwords, the person with BPD has shared their passwords with you. All of that's just going to hurt you in the long run, because that's the element in codependency of you are people with codependency, exes of people with BPD, are externalizing out a need for control. And it is that sort of, the love addiction part of codependency that is real, that people have to withdraw from, go no contact, and literally go through withdrawal from, in an emotional sense, right? And it's really important to know that without full no contact, especially when there's no children involved, and it's different with that, but I've talked about that in a couple live streams recently. Point being, you need the full no contact so you can actually heal. Because so many clients have told me just endlessly over years, and people I'm working with now too, they'll say they're no contact, or maybe they went no contact, and then there's contact, somehow they get back in contact, or people are in this half no contact place, which, maybe they initiate contact and the person responds, and is trying to be friends with the ex with BPD too. All these different circumstances where people are, with codependency, are not accepting that the relationship is over, not accepting that no matter what you've been through, it hurt you way more. Like when it was good, it was great, but when it was bad, it was horrible. And you have to concentrate more with the cognitive dissonance and the emotional dissonance in your healing after these relationships break up. You have to, in order to survive the BPD relationship breakup, it's going to be much healthier for you. It's very difficult, very, very emotionally painful, and you have to let go of the externalized control of keeping some kind of contact going, or half contact, or contact that isn't contact, it is contact somehow. Because each and every time you have any contact with an ex with BPD, or if it's a family member, whatever the relationship type, it's going to throw you back. It's going to hurt more. People just start to make strides of being able to sleep, ruminating less about the person. Bingo, here comes the contact. You engage it, or there's an avenue open, even though you think you're no contact, and you're pretty sure you don't want to talk to him anymore. And the next thing you know, yeah, there's contact. And it might not go all the way back to getting together again, but it might end up in this attempted friendship with exes with BP. Does not work, doesn't help you heal. So what I want codependents to hear about this the most is, it is this part of codependency where people are externalizing out their control needs onto the ex, person with BPD, or the ex, or the now friend, who is the ex. But why is it that you can't close the door in the cases for so many that just can't go full no contact? There's still hope there. There's what your issues are now driving, why you can't let go, why you don't close the door, why you don't help yourself out by taking action. It's going to be painful to get more into the process of A, working with someone, and I'm out here if you resonate with me, and B, stop exposing yourself to the very same thing, the very same person, the very same kind of interactions that you're so devastated, shattered, and wounded because of, and due to, and the nature of the dynamics as well. And so it's really important for people with codependency to realize that a big part of your healing and recovery journey, and I work with people in this, like I said, if you resonate with me, and you'd like to work with me, is how to not only accept that the relationship is over, go no contact, do that grieving, work through all the cognitive and emotional dissonance, but realize that you've likely had a freeze response, a freeze codependent response. And lots of people with codependency really don't know how to say no, not interpersonally. Maybe you can say no at work. Maybe you can say no in your job or your profession. But many people with codependency don't know how to say no. And the first no that you need to choose for yourself is no contact. That's the first no. And then people feel, responsible. They worry about the other person. You're still holding the other person's feelings ahead of your own. And then the backside of this, it's more important for people with codependency to understand, is that you're still externalizing out something that you need to know more about yourself, the control aspect of something, because you're feeling, or you might not be consciously aware, you're feeling out of control, perhaps over things that happened in the relationship or the way it ended, but also it's multi-layered back to your childhood where the roots of codependency really are developed. So I help clients, amongst many other things in this healing and recovery journey, with codependency, but from these relationships and their childhood, inner child healing, the family of origin work, the self-differentiation, and more. I help people with codependency to realize, to put the dots together of what's really hurting, aside from the obvious, the relationship, the missing the person. But what's blocking you from letting go? What's blocking you from going no contact? What's blocking you from actually feeling and dealing with the pain and the healing process that you need is often what you can't internally face for yourself, that goes back to childhood, that will mean some processing of pain. So I hope that's helpful. But people with BPD don't just do the final split to devaluation because finally they realize that you love them. It's not your fault or your responsibility. This is what people with BPD are struggling with. People who get into relationships with them can't possibly know this ahead of time. And so it's important that you start thinking about it now. And radical acceptance, and I'm talking about Buddhist philosophy, not within DBT skills for loved ones. Radical acceptance that the relationship is over. Radical acceptance of how hurt you are. It's a stop sign. And the reason that you can't keep that stop for yourself, or many people yet can't, it goes back to your childhood, your family of origin, a wounded inner child. It goes deep within you. And you owe it to yourself. You deserve to get into working with someone. If you resonate with me, I'm out here, be happy to help you. But get working with somebody who can help you to not only process and start your healing journey from the relationship, but also the multi-layered thing that's happening there. So people with BPD confuse needs and wants. People with BPD, I'm not saying all, but many and untreated, they confuse need with love, and they are seeking identity through you. So don't feel like you're the bad guy, in quotes, right? Whether you're man or woman, because you have to leave the relationship, or or if they ghost you, you don't have a choice. People with codependency get into these freeze responses that has to do with feeling all guilty and bad, and it's not really yours to feel. And then people with codependency are so concerned with what the other person and people in general think about them. And these are the things that you need to start processing. And the thing that is unavoidable, there is no closure in these relationships coming from the other person, right? The person with BPD or even NPD. But you can find closure in your own healing journey. But to do that, you have to first make some choices. You have to get yourself out of there, because, if you're being treated really poorly and badly, you're hurting. You can't rescue them, you can't help them, and you can't fix them. And you probably might not be consciously aware. You might know a lot intellectually from what you're researching, watching videos, reading books. But you have to get into your emotional landscape, the reality that you need to accept that this is a loss and it's going to hurt. But it's going to be a fantastic growth opportunity in your life too. So for many people out there with codependency, you continue to stay in some form of contact, or reverse Hoover, or stealth Hoover, or watch their social media, because you're externalizing control toward them that you need to figure out what it is inside of you that feels out of control, and how much you're hurting and why, and that you have the autonomy in working in a healing and recovery journey to change that for yourself. It's not going to come from, there's no closure with people with BPD, but it's not going to come from them anyway. You will be able to find it for yourself in working with someone. Clients that work with me will find it. That much I can say. And so don't fall for the idea and information out there that it's because a person with BPD realizes that you really love them, and then boom, they're gone. Because that lays it all back on you, and it's not really the truth of the matter. It's not what's really happening. So I hope that was helpful to someone today. And if you haven't yet, whichever side I'm pointing could be wrong, that round little picture of me there, hit that, subscribe, click the notification bell. Much more coming, many more live streams. And if you're so inclined and you want to know what I'm going to be up to on my other channel, it'll be linked under here. Maybe come over there, subscribe, and join me. I'm going to be live streaming over there soon too. So, going to be a bit of a different format. Really relevant topics to this though, just without the labels as much as possible. Take care.